So, what made you decide what college to go to? Were there a
Well,
lot of okay?
I hadn't taken the right classes. I had gotten good grades in high school, but I didn't at first. I didn't take the college preparatory courses, and when it came time to go, I couldn't get. I couldn't have gotten into the major 4-year schools, so I had to go to JC and make up.
So, when you were at Fresno City, were there a lot of colleges recruiting you for your colleges after you were there a couple of years?
No, there weren't a lot, but there were some. In those days, the major colleges like the Pac-10 or the Pac-8 or whatever it was in those days, Stanford, USC, Cal, they were not recruiting junior college guys. So the only 4-year school I was recruited by Navy, and other schools like Arizona State, and those they were interested, but the schools that I wanted to go to wasn't interested. I really wanted to go to Stanford.
So, when you ended up going to Fresno, what was it like there?
It was it wasn't much of a college. It wasn't much of a college atmosphere because we had no campus. We had little Quonset huts and one small building. It was like a tech school, but we didn't even have our own football facility. We didn't have our own gym. We had to do this stuff at other places, and since then they have grown a lot more. They took over the old Fresno State campus when they moved to their new campus. But that was my last semester there when they did that. But part of that, it was just like going to school in a school, nothing school.
What was it like at
It was a
Pacific?
commuters. It was more of a commuter school than anything in those days.
What was it like at Pacific? Was it similar to Fresno City, or was it a little bigger?
Oh no. The Pacific was not. No, the Pacific was small. We only had 1,700 students when and about 1,400 lived on campus. It was a small little campus, small private school. It was a neat school. It was a very comfortable environment. You didn't need a car to exist. Everything that you needed was right there.
So, did you play quarterback at Pacific?
Yeah. Played quarterback. Started playing quarterback my freshman year in high school, and never looked back.
So, when you got done with Pacific, did you know you wanted to play professional football, or did you think, you know what, I'm going to have to basically look for jobs in some other arena?
No, I didn't. To be honest with you, I didn't think about playing pro football when I was at that level. I didn't start doing that. Didn't start till right after my junior year when I was had a national ranking and got a little bit of attention, and also talked to some of the guys that were in pro football that had gone to Pacific, and also at that point I got pretty excited about playing football in the future.
So, how did you end up trying out for Calgary?
I had hurt my shoulder, my throwing shoulder, my senior year in college, and so I had a sore shoulder the whole time. I played, and I had a good senior year. Played the East West Shrine game, but my shoulder was still bothering me. So I went to Cal. No one say I was not drafted because of that. I had been approached before by some pretty interesting schools. Schools, the pro teams. Cleveland and Green Bay that I was going to be taken early in the draft, and it came to draft time, and I didn't get a sniff. So without having a place to go in the NFL, my coach, Moose Myers, got me in touch with Don Klosterman up in Calgary, and I signed.
Because Jim Finks, I think, was up there in that time too, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, Jim Finks. He and Jim Finks were the manager and general and president or whatever of the Calgary Stampeders in those days.
So how long were you with Calgary?
Not long, about 2 months, and then I came back and had to have surgery in my shoulder. Went back to school, went back to work on my degree, and I was working on my master's at the time, or starting to work on my master's, I should say. So that's what I did, and didn't really think about anything but getting healthy from the surgery, and because I pushed it a little too soon when I tried out the following year with the Redskins, and by the time I left there, I couldn't even raise my arm.
So how did the whole Raider deal come about?
Well, I had when I didn't make the Redskins, I went back to school again, and I was working on my master's. I was just finishing up all my graduate stuff, and I had one class left that I was going to take that summer, the summer of 1960, and then I would have gotten my master's, and then I had a job waiting for me in Fresno in high school, teaching and coaching, and then with the intention that I would move up to the junior college the following year. And this new league started, and I got a call, and they asked me if I would be interested, and I said, well, I said, I don't know. I haven't thrown the ball in a while. And I explained the situation. They said, well, go out and throw and see if the shoulder responds, and give us a call. So I did. I started throwing, and I went back to the doctors, and back and forth to the doctors, and throwing, and the shoulder got stronger, and also the pain went away. So I said, what the heck? I got nothing to lose. Why not? I'll give it one more shot.
So you
That was 61 years ago.
So you start
61
playing.
years ago. It worked out pretty good, I guess.
So you're with a new franchise. Was it tough being with a new league with a new franchise?
No, it wasn't, because we were all in the same boat. Everybody was there. Everybody was there with a new team, a new league, a new beginning. Some guys, there were a lot of guys like myself who had tried and failed, and some guys who had tried and succeeded, but wanted to play another year or two professional football, either out of Canada or out of the NFL. In those days, there were only like 8 to 10 NFL teams. So other than that, the only other choice you had was Canada. So there were a lot of newbies, and there were a lot of sandlot guys, and a lot of guys that just wanted to play, continue playing their love, their game of choice.
How did it change when Al Davis came onto the Raiders?
Well, when Al came on, he finally gave us. Up until that point, we didn't really have strong leadership. In the Raider organization, as far as football knowledge is concerned. So we finally got somebody that knew the football world, and it was his passion, and he worked on it and day and night, and he got us on the same page, and showed us how to win.
What made him such a great coach and owner?
Well, the greatness in coaching was never quite. He was a smart coach. He was a innovative coach, and he knew football. So his greatness was in his passion and his willingness to try and experiment and make the big play. The big play was a big part of his offense. So that he instilled that in us, and it was a quarterback's dream. I loved that when I first met with him. The part that when he started drawing plays up on the board, right, it was fun to watch, and fun to talk about because it was everything that a quarterback would want.
Being the first Hispanic quarterback, was there more pressure on you to succeed?
No, no pressure, none at all. I mean, nobody came up to me and said, you have to win before us. And I don't know that anybody even knew what a Hispanic was in those days. There were very few of us in the game anyway, so it wasn't a big deal.
Was it more enjoyable playing in the AFL because it was more of a wide open passing game versus the NFL where it was more of a running game?
I thought so. I thought it was a fun game. For a quarterback, it was a fun game. And for the fans to watch, it was a fun game. We weren't the established league, but we were the fun league because we were filled with high-scoring games and throwing the football and new players, different types of players, and throwing the ball to the backs out of the backfield. It was a wide open brand of ball that was very enjoyable by the fans and by the players. We loved it.
So what was it like when you went to Buffalo?
Well, Buffalo it was just like moving over to another neighborhood because by that time the American Football League was established. We had a lot of fans, and the Buffalo Bills were an established team because they had won the championship and they were in playoffs. And so it was first of all, it was not something I wanted because I started with the Raiders. I wanted to continue. I knew they were ready to start making the playoffs, and I had my best year when I got traded. I got my best year ever with the Raiders. And all of a sudden, I'm in Buffalo. So I didn't want. There wasn't something I wanted, but it was something that I accepted because that's the way it was. And I went to a team that I enjoyed very much. Made a lot of friends. We were pretty good. Then all of a sudden, we started getting hurt. I got hurt. Jack Kemp got hurt. Our offensive line got hurt. And then we went down to just a mediocre team.
When you signed with the Chiefs, you were the third string quarterback, but you were behind the Hall of Famer Len Dawson. You had a great coach in Hank Stram. What was it like playing on that team that won the first Super Bowl for Kansas City?
Well, it was fun because Hank was very. It was once again. It was like going to visit your cousins because everybody knew each other in the AFL. We all knew each other by first name, and we all had befriended each other some way or another down the road in the past, and so it wasn't like going to a strange world. I was accepted. I was accepted in the locker room and on the field. And Stram was very organized, had a good football team. Lenny Dawson, he got hurt. That was the reason I came in. So he was going to be out for about 5 or 6 weeks. And it was great. It was a strong bunch of guys, a very strong locker room, which was very important because you got to have a strong locker room, and in those days, you had to have a strong locker room.
And it couldn't have been fun practicing against that defense with those linebackers with Bobby Bell, William Lanier, and Lynch and those guys, and you had Curly Culp on the line. That'd give you nightmares every day.
Oh yeah, you look up and then you see Buck Buchanan there too, also, and then. They had Emmett Thomas, Johnny Robinson. They were Deion Stenerud. They had several Hall of Famer Pro Bowlers on the team. In fact, when we played the Raiders in the championship game, my old team to go to the Super Bowl IV, the best two teams in pro football were on the field that day.
So that was a tougher game than the Super Bowl game against the Vikings?
Yep. Oh yeah. Yes, it was. Yeah. I was very worried about. I knew that we were as good or pretty close to as good as the Raiders, but we were also playing in Oakland for the championship, and so it wasn't a gimme. So that game was going to be a tough and close game, as it was.
What made Hank Stram such a great coach?
He was organized. He was very well organized. Had a good scouting rapport or group, I should say, and they picked us. They drafted well, signed the free agents well, and he treated the players well with class and dignity. We wore sport coats and ties. Everybody had to dress up. It was like we were all in the same class at a military school or something. But he was very, very strict about things, but fair in the way he managed. And when you're winning, life is good.
How did you decide to get into coaching?
Pardon me?
How did you decide you wanted to become a coach?
Well, I did. I decided I wanted to stay in football, and no one wanted me to. Nobody invited me to training camp, and I asked Hank Stram if he would release me, and rather than go back to camp there, knowing that I wasn't going to make it. And he finally did after we talked a couple of times. And nobody called, so I just started preparing myself for life after. And I got a call from Buffalo, and Harvey Johnson, who was he had become the interim coach again because the head coach had quit, and they needed somebody to help them with the coaching the offense that year. So I had a chance to coach, and I take off to Buffalo and started coaching.
So you were the quarterback coach at Buffalo, and then the next year the receiver coach with Oakland. How did you become a receiver coach when you were a quarterback your entire career?
Well, the receiver coach was the only job open. So Mike Hollaback had been the receiver coach, and he retired and went back to Boston because that's where his family was. And so the opening was there. I took it, and it wasn't hard because receiver coaches, I worked on the passing game, really, and that's what I always liked anyway. So John had me working with the receivers and some of the tight ends as far as the passing game was concerned. And that was my group of guys. And then little by little, as I proved myself, he gave me more and more authority. And then eventually I got involved in the whole offense. And but mostly I was just the passing coach, wide receiver coach, tight ends, quarterbacks. Then he gave me the quarterbacks also, so I coached them.
So you had, as your receivers, you had two Hall of Famers in one Hall of Famer, Bolitnikoff, one who should be in Cliff Branch, and then you had Dave Casper, Hall of Fame tight end. That didn't make your job a little easier.
Absolutely, yeah. What the heck? Great players make great coaches. That's the way it is. And I worked with. I actually played with Fred. I'd thrown him his first pass, his first touchdown, his first drop, and first everything. And then I came back and coached him.
Was that hard to go from playing with?
How's that?
Was it hard playing with having guys that you played with and coaching them to get their respect?
No, because I didn't try to push. I let them be themselves. I knew what they were like. I knew the ego of a player, and I always felt treat players the way that you wanted to be treated when you were playing, and don't treat them with respect. And even those that don't deserve it, treat them still with respect because they are the student. And so I treated them all equal. And then there was, but when you have a group of egos in one room, that's not an easy task. So you had to walk carefully sometimes because they would get their feelings hurt. And, they want the ball. Receivers want the ball. So you had to satisfy as many as you possibly could.
So now you're in another Super Bowl and you beat the Vikings. Did you think to yourself, you know what, these Vikings must hate us? Every time I play them, we beat them.
Well, there was another game that was, we hadn't gone through the Pittsburgh and Miami and teams like that just to get to the Super Bowl. And by the time we got there, the Vikings, I didn't feel that they were the second best team in pro football, but they were there. They were the best team in the National Conference. That's just the way I felt because mainly because we peaked at the right time and we handled them pretty well in the Super Bowl.
So did you have any idea John Madden was going to retire and you were going to become the head coach?
I knew he was getting tired. I knew he had an ulcer because we spent many hours together, so we had to know a lot about each other, and but I did not think it so at the time. I thought if I was going to ever get an opportunity to be a head coach, it wouldn't be with the Raiders; it would be someplace else. But I was not getting a lot of notoriety as a potential prospect for a head coaching job. Not when you work with the Raiders.
So how did you end up getting the job? Did Coach Al Davis say, I want you to be his replacement? Or did you have to interview for it, or how did that come about?
No, I went to the interviews just like anybody else. He interviewed, maybe 5 or 6 guys, and narrowed it down to 2 guys, and of which I was one of them. So I went through the interview process just like anybody else would, and without any favoritism. And he wanted to see what I was like. He wanted to see how I would react to the pressures of the interview, and and as we went from one to the second time to the third time.
So you take over in '79, and then in 1980 you guys make the playoffs with a free agent quarterback in Jim Plunkett. Did you have any idea that you guys would have a chance to win the Super Bowl?
Not when it started. No, we weren't even thinking about Super Bowl. We were just thinking about winning, trying to get back to the winning. We knew that we were not far from, because we knew how to win. We had a winning tradition, and we still had enough guys. We still had Stabler. We still had Upshaw and Shell and Branch, and so we still had decent players. We just didn't have enough of them. So when it came 79, we were a game short of making the playoffs. And then in 80, when we traded Stabler, I said, well, maybe it's time to move on. We got to move on and perhaps get somebody else, get another quarterback.
Was that everybody thought Pastorini was going to be the quarterback, wasn't it?
Well, the thing is, he was available, and Al wanted to make that trade. I didn't want to make the trade, but Al did. I would have rather. We had Jim. He was a veteran, so we could have gone with him while we prepared ourselves for somebody else. Who was the next guy, to come up through the ranks. And not knowing that Jim was going to do what he did, because nobody do that. We just took a chance and dusted him off, and then finally, when he had to do what he did, he still had a lot of gas left in that tank.
I mean, yeah, when you think of that offense, it was a bunch of older guys. I mean, you had Van Egan, you had
Yeah.
Pastorini, Cliff Branch was getting up there.
Well, everybody was. Even Jim was when because he and Pastorini came out of college at the same time. Branch could still, even though he was older, he never didn't lose much as far as speed was concerned. And then but we were able to pick up enough guys. Picked up Bobby Chandler from Buffalo. I had coached him 1 year when he was a rookie at Buffalo. I really loved him then, and he still had some left in his tank. We got Raymond Chester back. We got Burgess Owens, Cedric Hardman. Upshaw Shell still had something left in their tanks. So we had enough guys that knew how to win, and we put them all together, and we started to mesh. And we started to mesh when Pastorini had a little trouble as far as blending into our philosophies and the way that we did it. He had been doing things his way for so long, it was hard for him to adjust. Jim fit in a lot much better. Unfortunately for Dan, he got hurt, and then that was the end of his career.
So when you won that Super Bowl, did you think, okay, I've accomplished everything I need to, or did you think I could keep doing this because this seems pretty easy? Second year as a head coach, I basically won a Super Bowl. I won it as assistant, as a player. What else is there to accomplish?
Well, you would think that really, but I didn't really think that because I knew that we had to rebuild. Even though we won in '80, we didn't. We still had a lot of spots that were going to need replacing, like the left side of the line with the Upshaw and Shell leaving. And how long would he last? Bobby Chandler, how long would he last? Van Egan. And the quarterback situation, we drafted Mark Van Egan. Not knowing how he would turn out, but knowing that he was a quality quarterback coming out of BYU. So there were a lot of things that we still needed. We needed to replace a lot of guys. We needed to replace our defensive backs. And Lester Hayes was coming up, and he had a great year in '80. And but the rest of the guys back there were pups, and we needed to replace them. Linebackers, we still had Hendricks. We had Rod Martin, and Matt Miller was a rookie, so we still needed help. So there were a lot of things. Football, you could never stop adding to your team, and you could never. The same guys. I learned when I was a young coach. Al told me, he says, the same guys that helped you win will eventually help you lose if you keep them too long. And he was right. As sad as it sounds, he was right. And because you keep hoping that you keep hoping that they still have something left, because I coached a team like that. And they did, and they gave me everything they could. They gave us all they could to win a Super Bowl. But then the next year, it didn't happen because they were starting to lose what they had.
Was it tough when you guys moved from Oakland to LA and you as a coach?
Yeah, it was tougher than hell on me because I had lived in a hotel for 14 months. And the first year we played in LA, we practiced in Oakland and lived in Oakland and flew down to LA for every home game. We had an eight-week strike, and what? So we're trying to. Excuse me 1 second here.
No problem.
I have the cleaning lady is here, and I have to move out of the room. So I'll move her to the other room. She'll hit me with a vacuum cleaner. Anyway, we had to replace these guys, and it was sad to do some of it, and it was sad but it was necessary. And Al was having some issues, and we were getting ready to move. And then all of a sudden, Carol, his wife, got sick. But it's still, we managed to maintain control of the team as far as the move. But when the thing is, when you move, the people that are damaged, or not damaged, the people that feel it the most are the families, because the team moves as a team. It's not one guy. It's not like when you get traded. Now all of a sudden you have a whole new family. No, you move as a team, a family, and so you have the same guys doing the same thing in another town. So that in itself eases a lot of the pain of movement. The town was different though, but LA was unlike Oakland, as you all know. So it was. But our guys adjusted. Our guys adjusted well, and we won right away, and we captured the town. First championship they've ever won, and the only one they've ever won.
When you beat the Redskins in that game, I mean, Marcus Allen came up big. Did you know that basically he was going to carry your team in that game?
No. We knew that he would carry the team. We knew that he would be a big part of the team because he was all year long. Marcus was a dominating player that was consistent, played hard, smart. He was a complete player. And when you have a player like that, everybody around him plays better. He makes them look better. And but that he would do the heroics that he did that day, no. Nor, we just. But I felt that it would be really a good game, but we were going to need to outscore them because they had broken the scoring record that year. And when we played them early in the year, they beat us by a couple of points at the end of the game, 30-something to 30-something or something like that. And but we played them without Marcus and Cliff Branch strained the hamstring of that game, and we didn't have Mike Haynes. When we got Mike Haynes that year, that changed our whole team.
How did it change when you got Mike Haynes?
Well, our defense also, we had a good defense to start with, but we were lacking at the other corner spot. Lester was going to play Lester Hayes football, which was excellent football by that time. He was an all-pro, and so they wouldn't pick on him that much, but they were going to work on the other side. So when we got Mike Haynes, all of a sudden we had two corners that could shut down the two outside receivers, and especially when we played the Redskins, because their favorite passes were the short pass or the streak down the sideline pass to the wide receivers. And Mike Haynes and Lester Hayes, they just shut them down. So they got right up in their face, and they couldn't do anything. And so we had the Theismann running for his life. They were not going to beat us with their tight ends.
And you had a pretty good defensive line too, with a young Howie Long.
Howie Long, yeah, Greg Townsend. Yep, and Reggie Kinlaw was probably the unsung hero of that group because he was he just stuffed the middle of that offense that did the Redskin offensive line. I mean, he was dominated in there. But we had when you look at, we had Hendricks, we had Matt Millen, we had Rod Martin, Howie Long, Lyle Zato in '83. I mean. Then we had Haynes and Hayes and Van McElroy, who made the Pro Bowl that year. Well, we had a ton of good players. We should have won.
And Jim Plunkett was your quarterback again that year.
Jim Plunkett, yep. And I had to sit him down again that year because he got beat up, and he was really struggling. So I had to make a change just to get some fresh blood in there, and I did so, and then Mark Wilson, unfortunately for him, broke his shoulder. And by that time, Jim had a couple of weeks, 2 or 3, 4 weeks to rest up. And by that, and then all of a sudden he was just like a young kid out there, and he was flawless and down the stretch, making big play after big play.
And then I remember the next year, I think the most violent game I ever saw was that '84 game between the Raiders and Bears. When I think you went through 3 quarterbacks and the Bears went through 2 or 3. I think Ray Guy was ready to play quarterback towards the end.
Yeah, I know. Poor guy. Felt sorry for him. I was trying. I knew, but it was a close game. But I was just going to try to keep it close, so maybe we could steal this game with a field goal or two, or as long as they weren't going to score a lot of points against us either. But I had Ray. Mark was in the locker room at the time. They were checking his shoulder out, and when we were carrying poor David off the field, and Ray was getting ready to go in, and his eyes were as big as watermelons. And I said, okay, now this is, here's a guy that was our, emergency quarterback. And I thought to myself, well, this is an emergency, Ray, so you're up. He wasn't too excited about going in the game. It would have been interesting to see what would have happened had he gone. I said, if we're going to throw the ball, we will throw the ball in maximum protection. So you just have one receiver to go to, or two at the most.
But Mark Wilson came back in and saved Ray Guy.
He came back in, and Ray went back to punting the ball, and he was very pleased about that. And Mark came out. He was a tough guy that day. Boy, we got beat up. That ended David Hubb's career. David was a great backup quarterback for us.
Was it tough coaching under Al Davis? Did he put his hand basically and tell you what to do, or was he hands off?
No, he never told me. No, he never said what to do. He would suggest things because he was a football guy. So, and I would have been foolish not to open it up and take his suggestions. He'd say, what do you got in mind? And we talk football because sometimes there was a time to talk it, and there was a time to where we had to go to work. Sometimes I had to say, Dal, I got some work to do, because he would have sat there all night talking. And I said, if he had any ideas, put them on the board, or let's talk about them. And once in a while we would, but most of the time we wouldn't. I knew what he wanted. I knew his philosophy, and so we were not off page. We were on the same page, and so that was never an issue. But the perception was that Al called the plays, would call down to the bench and everything, and it wasn't so. But was I going to defend that? Was I going to stand up and say, you guys are right? No, I couldn't do that either. So I didn't. I let it go. Those that were there knew, and those who were there during the practices and on the sideline during the game, and they all knew. Everybody knew how the system worked. I didn't have to prove anything by doing it, by talking about it.
What I give the Raiders compliments for is it seems like they took care of their former players. Like you had Biletnikoff, you had Otto, stayed around for years. A lot of the former Raider guys coached and stuff like that. Was it true that if you were once a Raider, you were always a Raider in Al Davis's mind?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think he always felt that if there was a Raider there someplace he could bring back to help, he would. And he did that with me. Even if he left with a little acrimony but Al could forget. He could forget. There were some things he couldn't forget, but even at the end there with Stabler, they made amends to their differences of opinion, and so it's But Al was not easy. He wasn't for everybody. He wasn't easy. He wasn't easy on John before me, and he wasn't easy on me. He expected us to do the best we could, and we tried to.
What made you decide to go to Seattle?
The opportunity. I didn't go up there to coach. I went up there to be the president and general manager. A friend of mine, two of my friends, had bought the club. Ken Barron and Ken Hoffman. And Ken Barron asked me to come up and run the team as president and general manager. So after the third year, they wanted to make a change with Chuck Knox. And I thought to myself, well, maybe it is time to make a change because Chuck's been here a while, and this team needs to be kind of overhauled, rebuilt. And he's Ken Barron's first choice. He said, "You're my first choice, but if you don't want to, hire somebody to do the job, the coaching job." So I thought about it, and all of a sudden I got, my coaching juices got fired up, and I decided to go back on the field. That's why I got back on the field. But then all of a sudden we had but when I went back on the field, we had we had a lot of people that had to go. We were not going to go anywhere with the people that we had, and we had to rebuild. And so we did that. I just ran out of time and got too many injuries and not enough key players.
How did it feel when you found out you were going in the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
How did it feel? What now?
How did you feel when you find out you finally got in the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
Oh. I was pretty much pretty emotional. I was here at the house. In fact, right where I am right now, where I'm sitting right now, looking over the golf course, and when Baker stuck his head in my door, and then I realized what was going on. I said, "Oh my God, I finally made it." So I was pretty emotional. I didn't know how it was going to be, but I was pretty emotional, and as was my wife. Mark Davis was here too. He came in with Baker, and so it was a moment in time that you treasure.
Did you offer him a Tom Flores Coors beer?
No, I didn't. I didn't offer him anything, and actually I did, but he didn't take it.
Did you ever think you'd have a beer with your picture on it?
No, never did. Never did. It was just quite a thrill. Quite a thrill.
I'm just glad you got in while you were still around, because I felt bad for Ken Stabler that he couldn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
And same thing with Cliff Branch. I wish he would have got in.
Yeah, we still got to get him in. I tell you, he belongs there too. So hopefully that'll get done in my lifetime. Yeah.
Do you think it's harder for Raiders to get in than other teams because of the Raider image?
Well, I never used to think that. I tried not to think that way because that's not, that's would be fair. But there is a bias, but it's not just a bias against us. It's a bias more for certain teams. Like the Pittsburgh team, they could put their bucket water boy in, and he'd pass. I just think that the voting system has gotten a little lost along the way, and they need to redefine it because they've got to do their homework. There's some guys in there that have had incredible careers. Don't just go by the guy that just broke the record, because first of all, today's game, you better catch a lot of balls. Just to be average, you're going to catch a lot of balls. You're going to catch more balls than some of the All-Pros of all time. But some of those All-Pros of all time didn't have that many balls thrown. and they played in a different era when the running game was a big thing. And so there's, 1,000 yards a season is not that big a deal anymore. Not with 16 league games, soon to be 17. Now, that's only 62 yards a game. So don't compare that 1,000 yards a year with 1,000 yards a year 20 years ago.